clean air cameras or a cash grab hitting motorists in the pocket.
Yeah, I'll give you high up.
London's ultra-low emission zone has divided communities, championed by environmentalists, but hated by those who feel it's a gateway to a dark dystopian future.
It's complete control. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it actually isn't. Essentially, are we going to end up being like China?
Describing themselves as anti-ULEZ soldiers, a concerted campaign to tear down and damage the alien-looking cameras continues at pace.
Barbecue. It's a war that I'm prepared to fight to help normal people that are struggling day to day, and that's what I'm going to do, and I won't be stopping.
But with no signs that the Mayor of London is going to back down, is this fight against the authorities all in vain, or will the sustained pressure bring about political change? This is the real story about London's ULEZ battle. It's mid-afternoon and talkTV has been told to come to an undisclosed location on the outskirts of London to film the latest casualties in an ongoing dispute against ULEZ cameras. Developed by German manufacturer Siemens, it has cost between £10,000 and £15,000 to install each of the automatic number plate recognition machines. But it only takes seconds to bring them crashing down. According to the latest statistics, almost 5 cameras a day are damaged as cameras douse the boxes in paint, set them on fire, or saw through supporting poles. The camera vigilantes call themselves Bladerunners, a secretive group of individuals hell-bent on causing destruction to the network of roughly 2,800 cameras. Through an intermediary, we track down a man who claims to have toppled dozens of them, although there's no way for us to independently verify this.
Tell us what you do when you go out targeting a ULEZ camera.
If, for instance, you might have burnt, sprayed, damaged cameras in stickers on it, could be anything at all, down they come. And if they're on a traffic light, down comes a traffic light.
What tools are you using?
All sorts of tools. Reciprocating saw seems to be the tool of the day. 20 seconds, you've got a traffic light on the floor with its ULEZ camera.
What do you do with the cameras once you've taken them down?
Have a bit of fun with some of them. Some of them go swimming. Some of them combust. Some are ornaments. Most of them, yeah, just smashed, thrown all over the place.
And you don't feel any remorse?
I feel absolute ecstasy and joy. It's fantastic to see these aliens on the floor dead. It is absolutely fantastic. When you've gone out and done a job and it could have been a big one, a few cameras down, destroyed, gone forever, I'm on cloud 9. All Blade Runners feel the same. It's a war that I'm prepared to fight to help normal people that are struggling day to day, because we want to get rid of them. We're doing that to stop them operating, to help poor people go about their daily lives.
When you say a war, with a war there's usually soldiers, just how many Blade Runners are there?
I know of some, but most of them are mavericks. They work alone, because they feel the same as me. But you've got to remember, they're backed up by thousands of people that feel the same, but they just haven't got it in them to go out and do what we do. We are soldiers. We're the good guys. This is people fighting back.
But what do the public think of the ultra-low emission zone? And are they as riled up as the Blade Runners seem to be?
What do you think about ULEZ?
I'm not too bothered by it, to be honest. It doesn't really stress me out like a lot of people.
That you don't feel the need to go out and smash up the cameras or put a cone over them?
No.
What do you think about ULEZ?
It's a joke.
Why are you so against it?
Because it's not fair. It's not fair on businesses. It's not fair on people that live in the areas and stuff like that. It's wrong.
Not the biggest fan of it. It kind of just shows how London is kind of getting more and more money-driven. I mean, public transport now is way more expensive. So the fact that the drive into London is a lot more expensive as well, I'm just not a fan of it.
ULEZ, what's your thoughts?
I think something's got to be done about the environment. We need to improve the living quality for everybody. But at the same time, I think the measures that are being brought in can be quite punitive to people who maybe don't have as much money.
Because this ULEZ thing is crap. It's just an extra tax that, we motorists just want us off the road. They just want to charge us for everything, parking tickets, ULEZ, everything.
I think it's a good thing. I think if it brings down pollution in the city, then I'm all for it. I know we have to make a few sacrifices though because of it. It's cost us. We have to get a new car, but it's worth it, I think.
What do you think about ULEZ?
It's stupid. I've just had to sell my car buy another one, well, my wife's car, because it wasn't ULEZ. So I was fed up with paying 12.5 quid every single day, so we had to change the car.
What's your message to the mayor?
Oh.
But ULEZ wasn't actually Sadiq Khan's idea. It was his predecessor's, Boris Johnson, who first announced it in 2013 when he was the Mayor of London. The stated goal is to lower harmful emissions in the capital by charging older, high-polluting vehicles from entering a specific part of the city, incentivising drivers to upgrade to more environmentally friendly cars or to use public transport. In order to avoid a daily £12.50 charge, vehicles must meet certain emissions targets. Generally speaking, diesel cars and vans registered from 2016 onwards pass the test, while most petrol models registered from 2006 are also exempt from paying the fee. The scheme came into effect in 2019, originally covering the same area of the congestion charge zone. However, from 2023, the area was expanded to include Greater London. That sparked a furious backlash from some motorists in the outer boroughs and became a key campaign issue in the Uxbridge and South Ruislip by-election, and against the odds, the Conservatives held on to that seat.
The Conservative Party candidate, 13,900.
Nobody expected us to win here, but Steve's victory shows that when people are confronted with a real choice, a choice on a matter of substance as they had here, they vote Conservative.
Despite the loss, Sadiq Khan insisted a bigger ULEZ area was the right way forward.
Well, the decision to expand the ULEZ was a difficult one. It's not a decision I took lightly, but it's a vital one to take. I'm simply unwilling to delay, water down or step back on this really important health and green policy of expanding the ULEZ. It's been shown to save lives, protect children's lungs, but also tackle the climate emergency.
Only 2.5 weeks later, an extreme response in the form of a hunger strike from Uxbridge resident Palbdeep Singh.
Well, the hunger strike, it was a symbolical approach just to connect to the people, who have the resentment, who have the anger within their self to oppose the situation we are passing through. So 7-day hunger strike was a symbolic approach to show the people, to tell the people either to train yourself to stay hungry or fight to survive or fight back against these dictatorial, draconian policies. That this is how the life is going to be like, where we have to remain hungry, have to stay hungry in order to survive. I am acutely aware that the ULEZ policy could intensify financial strain on the working class. So it is going to push the working class people deeper into the poverty. We are already facing the food poverty, cost of living crisis on the rise. So it will push deeper into it. So I choose a hunger strike as a means to physically manifest my solidarity with those who are affected.
Following the by-election defeat and a public outcry over his scrappage scheme, the mayor did make some changes to his ULEZ plans. Originally, payments to get rid of older polluting vehicles were only available to people in the outer boroughs, but this was then widened out. It meant that anyone with a non-compliant car could receive a £2,000 grant, while small businesses and disabled people were given more generous terms. According to Green campaigners, the ULEZ scheme is a triumph in public policy protecting public health. These representatives from an asthma charity, an environmental campaign and a cycling group say that Sadiq Khan did the right thing widening out the ultra-low emission zone.
The climate crisis is going to affect everyone, not equally, but it's happening right now, and we need to see a really big reduction in car miles by 2030 if we're going to meet our climate goals. It's a really big area of work for us.
There'll be people who are watching this who go, ULEZ is already hitting them in the pocket, don't want any more taxes coming down the line, and your company's saying we need far more and we need it sooner. That'll come as a shock to quite a few people.
Yeah, so I think we need to be basically redesigning London so that people can travel. It's easier for people to travel in cleaner, greener ways. So investing in public transport, investing in cycle lanes, investing in environments where people can walk around more easily. The cost of owning a car is a really big burden on people, and actually, you know, any money that is raised from ULEZ is going to be reinvested back into public transport, particularly in outer London.
But there's people who live in outer London currently who need a car to get into London. They say they live in areas that are not even semi-rural, but there's just no buses, there's no public transport to get in there, and so for them a car is a necessity.
Yeah, so I think that for those people, and bearing in mind that the vast majority of people across London are not going to be affected by ULEZ in any way, because more than 90% of people are driving compliant cars, but for those people they have three choices, which is they can either try and switch their travel to greener modes if they can, they can upgrade their car with the help of the scrappage scheme, or they can pay the charge. And those three measures are really needed to tackle the toxic air emergency, which is, you know, leading to a lot of premature death around London.
The ultra-low emission zone has been an incredibly effective scheme to lower toxic levels of air pollution. And let's be clear, this is a public health emergency. We know it increases chances of lung cancer, it causes fatal asthma attacks, and children are growing up with stunted lungs in the most polluted parts of London that will leave them with damage for the rest of their lives. We know that lung health is being damaged across the capital. There's 600,000 people with asthma and COPD already have these lung conditions, and they tell us every day that air pollution affects their breathing. This is why we're calling on the government to take urgent action on air pollution by helping people move to cleaner forms of transport through funding for things like scrappage schemes.
So ULEZ itself is about pollution, and obviously if you're cycling along a main road like this, you're having to breathe in all that pollution as you're cycling. That's not great, but also ULEZ is about reducing the amount of unnecessary car use there is in London. So the fewer cars on the roads, the more people are doing other things instead of driving when they can do, the better it is for everyone on the roads, walking, cycling, wheeling on a horse, in the car themselves.
Not everybody can cycle though. Some people need their cars.
Absolutely, some people do need their cars, and for those people, if we can reduce the amount of people who are just getting in their car to pop to the shops for a pint of milk, you know, TfL says that a majority of car use in outer London, where we are now, is stuff that could be done by bus, by cycle, by walking, whatever. So if we can get rid of some of those vehicle journeys, the people who really need their cars will have fewer cars in front of them at the lights, less congestion, and less pollution for them to breathe in while they're driving around.
But we're not Amsterdam, we're not Copenhagen, we don't have the infrastructure in place for mass cycling.
The idea that we can't change a city or the cities don't change is obviously gibberish. Cities change all the time and we have to decide how we do it. Boris and Sadiq have both done loads. So we're standing here at the result of something that Boris did way back in 2014. So if you build more cycle tracks and you reduce the amount of motor traffic, people do start cycling.
But with so much noise surrounding ULEZ, who are we meant to believe? Does it really improve air quality, or is it just a cynical cash grab penalising some motorists? 8 months on from the expansion, and protests are still regularly taking place. This one in response to a previous demonstration where a number of protesters were arrested by the police.
When we arrived there, we were setting up and we had 3 local coppers turned up. We asked everything, if it was okay, no problem. We don't block roads, we don't do any of that, we don't cause any sort of obstructions, so they were actually sort of quite fine with that. There was no animosity, it was quite good natured. Then all of a sudden the numbers started increasing, more and more and more police were arriving. Trying to reason with these police, saying, just use a little bit of common sense, we're not causing any problems, just leave us alone. But they were obviously intent on basically just making an example of us.
What was the location for this protest?
That was it's sort of Streatham, Tooting border.
Was it outside the house of Mayor Khan?
No, it was not. No, it was not. I think someone done a measurement. They said it was about 1/5 of a mile away. His house. It was at the end of his road.
Yeah. So what, 200 yards away from his house?
Oh, at least 200 yards away from his house.
There will be people who watch this who say, given the amount of attacks that have happened on elected individuals, we've seen from both Labour and the Conservatives, there's been assassinations in this country before, there are valid security concerns about having mass gatherings outside of people's houses, especially when they are elected people. Why couldn't you have just done a protest like you're doing today in the middle of a street that is not linked to the bottom of his road?
There was never any threat. As we made it really clear to the police there, we had no intention of going near his house. He has made a personal attack on every citizen, every person that lives in London. He has personally attacked with this unjust law. So
could you not say that Boris Johnson attacked everybody because it was his brainchild?
Yeah, but he's not in power now, is he?
No, he's not. But there's a lot of talk about London Sadiq Khan. But where is the anger towards Boris Johnson in the same ilk as well?
But as I just said, he's not in power now. He's not the person standing to be re-elected. So why would
he didn't bring it into the outer boroughs? To a certain extent, I can understand it more in central London. I mean, the transport links are better. You know, you've got buses, tubes, trains at every street corner. You've got no problems whatsoever getting about. It's a lot different out here, you know, in the suburbs, more towards the borders.
Being arrested by the police, going through the criminal justice system, is that going to stop you from coming out on the streets?
No way. It's made me more determined.
Just looking at the efficacy of ULEZ, does it work?
Well, it certainly achieves compliance. It depends what you think the aim is. So the opponents, I think, thought the aim was to raise money for the mayor's office, and on that level it doesn't really work because far too many people are compliant, so they don't make that much money out of it. In terms of just getting people perhaps to think about trading in their old vehicle a bit earlier, it probably does work a bit. And maybe if you have an old car and you have kind of, you know, several possible journeys you could make a week, and after ULEZ you think, well, I'll only use the car for going and seeing mum and dad because that's where it's really helpful, then it's worked in the sense that it's reduced the number of journeys made by polluting vehicles.
Deborah Mabbitt is a professor of public policy at Birkbeck University. We asked her to assess how well ULEZ is working. Has ULEZ led to less pollution then?
Its impact on pollution is quite marginal. And again, you might then think, well, so why were people so keen on this policy when actually it has a quite small impact on the measured things, nitrous oxide and particulates of different sizes. And again, I think to some extent, you know, I've criticized the opponents for actually campaigning really big on the basis of other objections. And to some extent, the supporters are a bit guilty of that too, in that they want to see measures taken to reduce pollution, which has big public health costs. This measure has a very limited effect on public health, but it's seen by supporters as being an important step. You know, it's a first step, if you like. And so they strongly support it as being the right direction of travel, not really because it's going to have such a huge impact.
So if it's not making money for the mayor's office and it's not bringing down pollution, what is ULEZ doing for the mayor's office? Not
a lot. I mean, I think it's something of a phony war, the whole issue of ULEZ. I mean, one of the things that's actually in the TfL consultation document is that they are thinking of moving towards more road pricing, and for that they thought certainly that at the time that they needed a camera infrastructure, and that the camera infrastructure, you know, ULEZ would kind of start that off and then they'd have the mechanisms in place. I mean, apparently it's not so clear that you do need a camera infrastructure for road pricing now, because you can use in-car devices and so on. So the reason for having it is just to make some further steps towards better use of the roads in London, and it's just a small step in that direction.
So that's something that we do hear from people, that the cameras are going to be the first step to pay per mile, to more road charging. And what you've basically said there is that, yeah, that's right, that is the plan all along, that the ULEZ cameras are just the first step towards even more road measures.
Well, they actually say that. I mean, some people seem to treat this as a kind of, you know, investigative journalist discovery, but actually it's in the consultation document that TfL put out that that is the direction they're going in. And there's also, when they estimate the impacts, they only talk about the short-term impacts, because they say that by 2030 or perhaps even sooner, they'll need a new scheme because they've got other goals to reach. So they never denied that this was just a small step in a bigger plan. That's in there in the consultation. So yeah, I do think that's what they're doing. But I also, you know, if you think about making public policy in this area, it's difficult to get the public to accept change once the change happens, they discover it's not that bad. And so there is actually a good kind of public policy reason for just making small steps towards the changes that you want to make.
Even so, cameras are still being targeted. Matt Hardy describes himself as a reporter, focusing on the fight against ULEZ. He says he just wants to update thousands of anti-ULEZ fans about the latest cameras getting damaged.
What we got here behind us here?
The camera here has been locked down with a reciprocating saw. Last night at about 9:30 I received a photo of this. So yeah, the guy's done it. He said, here, Matt, report on that. So I've stuck it up on my social media to let people know it's happened.
So you've pro-ULEZ or you anti-ULEZ?
Anti-ULEZ. We want to see these down. That's why I come out and show people, to give them a bit of joy in the morning. Like, all the comments on my social media posts are all great. People love seeing it. So yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll give the people what they want.
Why do you dedicate so much time to it?
I've got the time to do it, and it's an attack on me, an attack on the poorest people in society, an attack on people who can't actually afford the ULEZ. Like, if you've got an uncompliant older car, the chances are that you're struggling anyway and that you can't afford £12.50 a day.
We're at the bottom of 3 T-junctions.
Yeah, we're here right on the border between Hillingdon and Buckinghamshire. As you come into this close, you actually enter the ULEZ zone. As you go into the close over the road, you enter the ULEZ zone. So if someone was coming in from Buckinghamshire to visit their friend or family here, they can travel all the way to this point here outside their house. But if they come in and park on their driveway, they pay £12.50 in an uncompliant car.
And it's a T-junction?
It's just there's 60 houses in this close. It's nothing. Why have they got a ULEZ pinning these people in? Like, the 30 houses in the next close down, it's even worse. But it's not going to be staying around here. The people, have spoken here, and we're not having this. We've seen the Bladerunners. They're going to be out. They're going to be cutting this down. I've been assured it's going to get worse, not better, for Mr. Khan.
But as one camera comes down, another takes its place. This time in Croydon, where locals have gathered to challenge this latest installation. It's not the first time these campaigners have turned up to protest.
How often do you come out and campaign and try to stop the ULEZ cameras from being put in?
Oh, I've lost count. There is no air quality problem in areas like this. This tends to be areas where we have relatively poorer public transport. People are more spread out. They need their cars, they need their vans. And it tends to be poorer people in poorer areas that have poorer public transport. They don't have £25,000, £30,000 to spend on a new electric car. The reality is that ULEZ punishes regressively the poorer section of society that lives, in this case, in outer London.
Inside the anti-ULEZ bus, we speak to Claire, who's sopping wet after standing in the rain for hours trying to stop the camera from going up.
Really, I kind of got involved when the camera vans started turning up in my village. That's when I became more active. You know, not just sitting behind a computer, but actually physically out on the streets, because I just wasn't prepared for people with non-compliant cars to be fined.
How does ULEZ affect you personally?
It doesn't affect me personally. I have a compliant car, so it doesn't affect me. I wouldn't need to be doing this if it wasn't for the fact that I care about everybody else.
There'll be people who watch this, and I'm saying this in the most respectful terms, but there will be people who watch this and they'll say, you've got no real skin in the game because it doesn't affect you. You are basically a troublemaker by trying to stop these things from going into place when...
But then who do you put into that collective? Who do you put into that box as being a troublemaker? Am I a troublemaker because I'm standing on the street by stopping a box and camera install legally? You know, we could all be put into that box, can't we? So I don't believe that we are troublemakers. All we're doing is standing up for what we believe is right. I believe it's an unfair tax, whatever you want to call it, on the people, and the people that are going to suffer the most are essentially those who are not rich, because it is going to affect all of us, because the goalposts will just keep moving.
We approached the Mayor's office multiple times for a response, but nobody from City Hall got back to us. Whether you support ULEZ or are vehemently opposed to it, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. The world is undoubtedly facing a climate crisis, and most people agree that more needs to be done to lower emissions. But as ULEZ has shown, when those efforts hit people's wallets, the pushback can be costly.